Are you ready to grow your own kale from seed, but you're not quite sure how to get started?
Well, if so, that's great because today we're going to show you how to sow your kale seeds indoors and outdoors step by step.
Hi, we're Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden, and we're partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden. But before we get to that, did you know that kale is actually full of antioxidants, and it can be added to salads and dishes and all kinds of other things?
Yeah, and kale can also be grown as a microgreen, and it's generally considered a cool season crop, so you can grow it both in the spring and the fall. Now, before we show you how to sow your kale seeds, there's a couple things we'd like you to know. First, kale, or also known as Brassica oleracea, is really a biennial plant, but it's grown as an annual and it's hardy in zones 2 through 10. Now, most kale will mature anywhere between 30 and 60 days after germination, and there's a lot of different colors and textures to add to your garden for garden design purposes. Now, there are different kinds of kale, and it's all by taste. There's a mild type, there's a sweet type, and there's a nutty or peppery type. Now, with knowing the different tastes, they're going to taste their best when the plant is growing at a really rapid rate of growth. And if you plant for a spring crop, the best flavor will be right before the summer heat sets in. Now, we'll be sowing scarlet kale seeds today, which is an open, pollinated, and heirloom variety. It'll have a slight peppery, earthy flavor. Now, you'll need a full sun to partial shade location for your scarlet kale, and it's easy to grow, super vigorous, and easy to maintain. Scarlet kale will be harvest ready in 30 to 60 days. You'll need to keep the soil consistently moist because it has average water needs. Now, it likes well-draining, fertile, loamy soil with a pH around about 5.5 to 6.5 pH. These seeds will take anywhere from 7 to 10 days or more to germinate under perfect conditions, and plants will reach a mature height of 24 to 36 inches tall. Now, scarlet is great for either container or culinary gardens, and it's both drought and cold tolerant.
Kale can be sown in both spring and fall seasons, which makes it really versatile for you when you're planning when to start your seeds. Plus, you can grow them either indoors or outdoors. If you want to get your seeds started early in the spring, sow them indoors 4 to 6 weeks before your last spring frost. This will let them have time to get germinated and for you to harden them off before planting them outdoors. If you want to sow your kale seeds directly outside, you could plan to sow them as early as 4 to 6 weeks before your last spring frost as well. Kale seeds can germinate outdoors in soils with temperatures as low as 40 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, let's get these kale seeds sown indoors in these seed cell trays. The first step is to get your soil ready for planting. You can see we're using these seed cell trays here, and the soil is a seed starting soil that is pre-moistened. The next step is to get ready for sowing. It's helpful to use a tool like a seed dibber, or you can use a chopstick or a knife. We're using our tool here called the Divi XL to make small indentations in each of the cell holes at 1/4 inch deep. Next, carefully remove your kale seeds from the seed packet and drop 1 to 2 seeds per planting hole. You can thin them later. Carefully cover each planting hole with a little bit of soil. The last step is to gently moisten the top of the soil to start the germination process. And that's how you sow your kale seeds indoors.
Now, once your seeds have germinated, you'll need to place them in a full sun location or under grow lights so they can get at least 8 hours of sunlight. Then, as they grow, make sure to keep their soil moist and they're consistently watered. Once your seedlings have grown at least 2 sets of true leaves, you can then start to think about transplanting them out into your garden. But you'll need to wait until the last threat of frost has passed, and you'll need to harden your seedlings off. So what that entails is you taking your seedlings outside progressively over longer periods of time over a 1 to 2 week period, starting off with about 1 or 2 hours outside from where you've been growing them inside. Then as the days progress, bring them out and leave them out for another 2 or so hours, progressively working up to a full day's length and even overnight the last couple nights, so then they're fully acclimatized to your garden. And then after that period, plant them out in your garden, either in a ground bed, a raised bed, or a container. We're going to transplant out into this container that you see right here. Now, the important thing here is to remember to match this soil level of the seedling to the soil level in the container so it's not planted too deep or too shallow. Now, to space these out, we're going to use our hori-hori knife with these graduated markings on here, and we're going to measure at least 8 inches away from each other so we can get the correct minimum spacing. If you have more than one seedling in each one of these trays, they're so closely together, it's easy just to gently pull them apart so you don't disturb the roots or hurt the roots too much, and then you can plant each individual plant out in your garden. And our last step is to water these in so they can start growing and producing those tasty leaves. Now, before you plant your kale seeds outdoors, there's a couple things you need to know. First off is kale like to grow in well-draining loose soil. So if you have heavy clay or porous soils, you'll need to add some type of organic matter or compost to make sure you have the optimum growing medium. Your kale seeds will germinate really fast if your soil temperature is at about 65 degrees, but even if your soil temperature is down towards about 40 degrees or just above that, your seeds will still germinate, just not as quickly. You'll need to plant the seeds about 1/4 inch deep, and whether planting your seeds individually in a container like this or even in rows, they all need to be spaced about 8 to 12 inches apart. So here in this container, we're going to plant our kale seeds, and we need to plant them again 8 to 12 inches apart. Using a hori-hori knife with these measured markings on here, we're going to start from here and we're going to measure out 12 inches. So if we go to here, we'll just make little indentations to mark where we're going to place those holes, probably next to those. Next, using your favorite seed sowing tool, and we're going to use our Diby XL, we're going to measure down 1/4 inch for a seed depth planting, and that's the second ring you see right here. And we're just going to make little indentations down to 1/4 inch. You can place 1 to 2 seeds in each hole. If you get a couple more in there, that's okay. You can thin the seedlings out after they've grown at least 2 sets of true leaves. Lightly cover the seeds so they're not planted too deep, and that soil is nicely packed around them. And the last step is to gently water in your seeds so you don't displace them and you start the germination process. Now, in the weeks and months to come, you'll need to make sure to keep each one of your kale plants consistently moist and well watered. But you don't want to overwater them because they are really susceptible to bacterial and fungal diseases. You want to make sure as they're growing, they don't dry out too much either, because this can hasten them flowering, and that will actually make them taste a lot different. Now, when watering your kale plants, it's a really good idea to use some type of drip irrigation system or some at ground level types of systems, so the water is actually getting to the soil and getting down to the roots. This will help prevent different kinds of diseases from forming on the plants. Now, to give your plants a boost at the beginning and even during the middle times of the season, you can add different kinds of organic matter like a fish emulsion, and that'll help not only get nutrients to your plants and your seedlings, but it'll also help keep that soil acidic for its best growth. Make sure to keep up the weeding around your plants because you don't want them competing with those weeds for nutrients and water. Now, to also keep weeds at bay, you can mulch around your plants, and this will also help with keeping moisture down around those roots. Also, while your plants are growing, make sure to remove any dead or damaged leaves because you don't want to help propagate any type of diseases. And mentioning diseases here, you also want to look out for powdery mildew or downy mildew and other different kinds of fungal diseases while the plants are growing. Now, to keep the plants producing a lot of leaves, try to use some type of fertilizer that has a high nitrogen number, and this can be a general purpose fertilizer that is either a liquid fertilizer or granulated. Now, your kale plants will stop producing harvestable leaves when the night temperatures reach below 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
You can expect to harvest kale leaves in 30 to 60 days after germination. Once individual leaves reach about the size of your hand, you can harvest them with scissors or shears. If flower heads start to develop, you need to prune those away to extend the leafy growth. To actually harvest your kale leaves, pinch off the outer leaves of each plant. Make sure and harvest in the early morning after watering when the plants are least stressed. Only remove up to about 1/3 of the leaves, and don't remove the terminal bud at the top center of the plant so that the plant will keep producing leaves to harvest.
Now, if you need more vegetable or flower growing or planting tips, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides.
And we hope this video was really helpful for you in sowing your own kale seeds. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you for watching.